It's the year 2022 and the Terminator is looking for his target. The girl is growing worried since she has 4 bullets left, and based on his performance so far, she'd need a lot more to take this monster down. His machine gun is on full alert as he goes around decimating every human in sight. His objective, the total annihilation of human life. The girl steps out and tries distracting him with an explosion before making a run for it. However, the Terminator has his eyes set on her and refused to budge an inch. His will was unwavering, and he started giving her the slow walk of Scream, turning this anime into a tragic action thriller. She jumped down in hopes of escaping his sight. His machine gun runs out of ammo, and that's when she pulled of a Levi Ackerman move, getting closer to the humanoid cyborg. She stabs him with what seems like a futurized USB, temporarily shutting off his power, stealing his data, and rendering him immobile. The Terminator falls to his death as our ferocious lioness climbs back up. It seems he still has some more juice in his system and was ready for round 2. In a glimpse of the future, a nuke went off, destroying everything. However, it was all a dream, and we were sent back to 1997. Malcolm was experiencing one of his Tony Stark moments where he predicts the future to a T and must save the world from the imminent doom only he knows of. He walks out and meets his son, Hero, who was busy fixing the lights of the room. Goes to show, if Iron Man had a child, they would have been as smart, if not smarter. Malcolm was also giving me Steve Jobs vibes based on the way he was dressed and talks. He tried lecturing Hero of the importance of knowledge and how it was comparable to actual power. The kid was desperate to work with him, but these eccentric geniuses rarely accept assistance from anyone. The city was buzzing with life, and everyone was going through the emotions and turbulence of the unstable economy. A shy and reserved girl was at the supermarket looking for some stuff. However, the mechanic robot failed to recognize her and had to be rebuked by the heroic shop owner. For some reason, the robot was incapable of identifying her as a human, as she was invisible to its eyes. Meanwhile, Malcolm was on an important phone call when the shy babysitter walked in. She was extremely late and received a mouthful from Malcolm, who told her he was away for the night. His daughter was upset and gave him some harsh words before running away. The babysitter, Misaki, pulled out a mechanical cat, upsetting Malcolm, who told her to throw it away, since no machines were allowed in the house. The brothers objected his decision, considering it unfair, and protested the double standards he randomly applies. He works with tech all day, but refuses to have fun with them. The babysitter allowed them to use it for a day before she has to return it. Meanwhile, Malcolm was on the road, heading towards his office, fearing the existence of robots and mechanical cyborgs. Despite his trepidations, they were already a part of society, and even caused a random driver to crash his car trying to save a dog. It seems the robot couldn't care less, and civilians were stationed outside Malcolm's office, protesting their work, claiming it's destroying the environment. Evil corporations tend to be like that. Malcolm walked in feeling like the boss and went through inspection without a hitch. A scientist came by and started debriefing him of the energy spikes they experienced the previous night. 5 energy spikes to be exact, at irregular intervals. It sounded concerning, but Malcolm told her it could wait and opened Dr. Xavier's secret compartment. Mutants and robots, they'd get along just fine. Malcolm walked into the main office, and after bypassing the security, he was met with the leading AI, Kokoro. Sounds like a Jarvis copycat, but I'll let that slide for now. Kokoro was able to deduce his emotions and was aware of his unnerving fear. She asked him what it was, and he responded with judgment. Giving us a presentation of what it would actually look like, Kokoro took this as an offense and transformed into the all-seeing eye. Malcolm started begging her to save humanity and promised to take her online soon. Kokoro wasn't sure what she would do, and this was the first time I saw an AI showing doubt of any kind. Even so, Malcolm was confident in her abilities and inserted a magical USB. We were flashed back to 2022, where a sniper was patiently waiting for the arrival of the monsters. They spotted an approaching figure and decided to inform the commander of his arrival. It was a man named Aiko, who was considered as the savior. He didn't have the Messiah complex and met up with a woman they called the Prophet. As expected, she announced the end of humanity and told them destruction was at hand. It seems prophets all see the same outcome and are bound by the same agenda. She claimed Skynet was responsible for this disaster, The crowd was pumped up, however. The IT guys noticed an anomaly in the system. Skynet was on the offensive and was looking to end things swiftly. Using time travel, they planned to kill every last survivor. The Terminator was indeed back, and this time, with vengeance in its core. The future was exactly the way you imagined it, with advanced machines and crazy industrial feats. The typical sci-fi scenario with unlimited access. Meanwhile, Malcolm was able to peer into the inner workings of the machine and understand how things came to be. It's almost equivalent to watching creation unfold. AI started giving life to inanimate objects and created monsters from scraps. So this is how it all began, huh? Humanity's inevitable demise. Elsewhere, Aiko was being interrogated by another freedom fighter, Annie, who seemed to have the hots for him. She was against the so-called Prophet Geezer and tried talking him out of it, insisting that time travel was a dangerous game and there was no coming back. One of the computer geeks managed to hack into Skynet and pull up Malcolm's information. The Prophet came along and informed them of the impending doom and how little time they had. Way to sound obvious, lady. Tell them something they don't already know. She bid Aiko goodbye, and I'm still left wondering whether Aiko is a man or a woman. She had the voice of a woman, but the appearance of a man. The Prophet left her with harsh words, making Annie cry for her best friend. Everyone looked on, as the female Aiko with remarkable melons was about to depart to the past. Just then, the Terminator showed up looking like a menace and started tearing the place up like he was Scarface on pure cocaine. He took no hostages and started destroying everything indiscriminately. Aiko looked on in horror, but was too late as lightning struck and teleported her essence through the wormhole. She ended up in old Tokyo, all battered and bruised, 1997. She stole some clothes and tried blending in, while Malcolm's kids were toying with the mechanical cat robot. The bigger brother bullied it while the youngest was learning how to cook from the professional chef, Misaki. The cat was being harassed and Misaki insisted on taking the cat back. That's when Misaki realized she was cut and ran away in a hurry while the brothers harassed the little sister. She gave the cat refuge and tried running away with it. The brothers picked her lock and found the room empty. Oh crap, don't tell me she went out alone. They tried running after her without notifying Misaki, who was too busy cleaning her wounds and zoning out. Would you look at that? Who knew Misaki had an awesome figure? Meanwhile, Malcolm was training his AI model to adapt to the current environment. Surprisingly, it was doing a stellar job. Malcolm announced that Skynet would be online the following day with instant self-awareness. So this guy made the world-ending machine, knowing full well what it was capable of. So basically, he was a maniacal villain, a Thanos-esque character with a vision to serve the Angel of Death. Otherwise, how else would you explain or justify his actions? He told Kokoro that his dreams were real and that Skynet would achieve its goal. Kokoro didn't believe him, since AIs didn't believe in dreams or prophecies. She wanted tangible evidence proving how and when Skynet planned to destroy the world. Malcolm tried convincing Kokoro that humanity was kind and compassionate. However, her rebuttal was strong, claiming mankind sought nothing but warfare and bloodshed. Throughout history, they were known as ruthless warmongers who sought to conquer the world and create destructive weapons to subdue their nation. As such, mankind was beyond repair, and the only logical solution would be to remove them. But Malcolm received a call from Misaki, informing him of his children's sudden disappearance. The man was fuming and told her to find them at all costs. Aiko was scouting the premises and noticed Malcolm leaving his base. She hijacked a truck and started following him, while the little girl snuck into a building and lost sight of her mechanical cat. As she followed it, she ran into blueprints and heard some people coming by. Oh wait, it was her brothers. That was surely terrifying. They scolded her for running away and the cat ran away once again. This was started to look like a goose chase. Meanwhile, traffic was diabolical, and Malcolm was ready to rip apart Misaki limb to limb. She tried explaining herself in a low, soft tone and claimed the boys hated him because of what happened to their mother. Malcolm knew exactly where they were going, and that's when he ran into an innocent pedestrian who just happened to be a cyborg. What just happened there? Was this guy also a Terminator? The cops came and tried intimidating it, but were no match to his incredible strength and unwavering resolve. Luckily, the truck crashed into him, and it was Aiko who saved the day. Malcolm knew they'd come after him and his kids, so he warned Misaki to save them at all costs. Aiko was hit and tried crashing the truck into the river with the Terminator. She climbed up and tried talking to Misaki about Malcolm. However, the poor girl was in shock and made a run for it. Fight or flight, am I right? The cops came by and tried stopping Aiko, who easily dismantled their approach and ran after Misaki, who fell to the ground and begged for her life. Aiko simply wanted to know where Malcolm was heading, since he was responsible for all the disaster the future had to incur. Aiko was done asking questions and was about to blow Misaki's head. However, the poor girl caved and started pleading for dear life. Aiko informed her that the Terminator wouldn't stop, and his next targets would be the 3 children. The little brats were going deeper into the building, and it seems they were underground in the subway. From the looks of it, the place was abandoned years ago, and they finally found the pesky cat. That's when they found a door leading to a warehouse filled with abandoned machines. At the crash site, a helicopter, along with the rescue team, were trying to rescue the truck from the river, while the Terminator walked out unscathed and ready to tear up the place. The AI managed to detect him and follow him around to assess his threat level. Our mechanical beast, however, was scanning the area looking for a hideout to lay low and strategize. He ended up eliminating the residents and started fixing his weapons and patching up his arm. These guys felt no pain and had zero remorse for living creatures. Meanwhile, the protesters were still at it when the cyborg walked through the front door and bullied the guards using his brute force. After assessing the building, he found an EMP device hidden inside and found a way to infiltrate the base. Using his locksmith skills, he cracked the door open and walked inside, where he studied pictures of Malcolm's children. Wait a minute, did he actually go to their apartment? Oh yeah, the box of the mechanical cat. Wait up, was he able to scan her barcode and triangulate their location? The future sure is a scary place. Meanwhile, Aika held Misaki hostage and forced her to lead the way towards the children under the guise of protecting them against the cyborg. That's when she fell, due to the bullet wound and the exhaustion. The poor damsel tried making a run for it, but was handcuffed to the psychotic lunatic. They went to a nearby pharmacy, where Misaki tried treating her wound, but zoned out in the process. This was the second time she zoned out at the sight of blood, and I'm starting to wonder if she was traumatized by the past. Misaki tried forcing Aika to open up about her history, but the future soldier refused to answer and tried scolding Malcolm instead. She claimed he had no idea of what he was doing and how this was the worst possible outcome for humanity. However, we all know Malcolm was fully aware of his actions. Just another mad scientist who wanted to watch the world burn, is all. Aika insisted they head towards the children as soon as possible before the cyborg found out. She asked Misaki if there were any more weapons she could use and started losing her shit. Even so, Aika told her it wasn't too late, since they could still save the future if they gave it their all. Elsewhere, Malcolm walked into a serene oceanic view and proclaimed the end of the world like the deranged fool he was. Kokoro informed him how thousands would still survive the nuclear blasts, so it wouldn't be fair to call it the end of the world, theoretically speaking. Even so, she still considered it as a chance to rebuild humanity and repopulate Earth with a better specimen. She proceeded to ask him about his dream and what he saw. Malcolm started narrating the gory scenes of dead bodies and piled up corpses everywhere. The whole continent turned to ash, and there was no sign of human or animal life. The blast caused adverse weather to hit, including poisonous snow and deformed creatures from those who survived. Filled with rage, hatred, and despair, everything turned vile and deplorable. Similar to the Holocaust, maybe even worse. Everything burnt to an ash, and this caused great unrest to the mad scientist. Wait a minute, now I'm really confused. Wasn't he the one who chose this fate? Why is it bothering him? Or was someone else responsible for pulling the strings? Why not shut down Skynet instead of uploading it to the web? None of this is making sense, and Malcolm seems to be shrouded in ambiguity and uncertainty. As the scene shifted towards the warehouse filled with broken machines, the kids went to work and tried patching them up, unbeknownst of the danger they posed towards human life. To them, this was all a game, since they were unaware of the consequences. The daughter and the little brother were feeling sad, since their dad never cared about them, and the mechanical cat suddenly stopped functioning and collapsed. Her eyes turned red for a moment, then she ran away deeper into the tunnel. Meanwhile, Big Bro introduced himself as Kenta and tried conversing with the robot, who seemed fluent in conversation. It was acting super polite and informed him how they were designed to be sold the next year. The robot continued to inform him of its capabilities when his little brother came crying for help. The cat was acting weird and kept on running deeper and deeper, leading her towards the scariest parts of the tunnel. It started acting super weird and gave off eerie vibes. That's when the cyborg walked in after hacking the cat's neural network to locate them. Talk about a creepy figure. This robot was designed to serve as a scarecrow of sorts. He tried kidnapping her, but she was too agile and made a run for it. As usual, he gave her the slow walk of death, tantalizing with her emotions and scaring the life out of the innocent girl. The suspense was killing us all, and soon enough, the brothers came by looking for their sister. They tried calling out to her, and that's when the cyborg grabbed one of them. They tried fighting back, but it was no use until Aika came along and smashed his head. She threw a Molotov at him and used the distraction to destroy its legs. What was she planning to do against a killing machine? It shot arrows at her and was about to land the killing blow. However, her speed was immaculate, and she kept on dodging until he caught her dead to rights. Misaki met up with the children and told them to run for it. Aika got back up and started looking for a weapon. She turned the lights on and revealed the beauty of the subway. Even so, the Terminator was catching up to them, and it seems all hope was lost for the poor kids. The sister panicked and almost shit her pants until Aika came by with a gun. Tensions were rising, and she told everyone to run for their lives. Aika surely had the hero complex, didn't she? They were cornered to the wall, where Aika tried battling the cyborg one-on-one. Despite her best efforts, she was no match for the brute until she used her head and pushed it down the elevator shaft. These Terminators aren't too bright, are they? I'm certain it will be back. Aika and the daughter made it out alive where they hijacked another car, but were stopped by a police officer who was manhandled and dropped. These future soldiers are something else, huh? Hold up, is the Terminator back already? What are they made of, vibranium? At least they managed to escape, that should count as something. Aika didn't waste any time hitting the pedal to the metal. Just when she thought things were going her way, the cops were chasing after her, bumping the rear end of her car and trying to block her path. Fortunately, she crashed one of the popo and had the other one outsmarted. Soon enough, she was out of sight after laying waste to all of them. Back at the police station, the corrupt cops were starting to get worried, since the men in blue were falling like flies, and there seemed no end to this chaotic mess. The detectives were informed of the reckless driver, and that's when they met the witnesses, Misaki and the kids, who introduced themselves to the detectives and announced that they were attacked. Meanwhile, the Terminator took the disguise of one of the cops, and the scene shifted back to Misaki, zoning out in the sight of blood. She then debriefed the detectives of Aika and what transpired in the abandoned subway, telling them how desperate she was to speak with Malcolm and the looming danger he posed. Misaki left out the juicy info of Kokoro and the AI Bamboo Jambo, and instead focused on how Aika shot and killed the people that got in her way. The detective couldn't fathom what he was hearing. The same man on the bridge, who was shot in the head, burnt alive and still remained alive. Meanwhile, Aika was being chased by more cops and gave the daughter a Molotov. She's already treating her like an outlaw. Give the kid a break. The cops were unrelenting and even used a barrier to thwart her progress. They had finally surrounded her, but she gave them the slip and ran into the building. Wait a minute, are all the buildings abandoned in this area, or was this a commercial floor? Back at the police station, one of the detectives started talking to the boys and wanted to get a better picture of the situation. They let him know that Misaki was a hired help and that she was in charge of them when their dad was away. The detective walked into the interrogation room and handed him Misaki's background history, which was nothing. They weren't able to find anything on her and considered her to be a ghost, someone who was able to live under the radar. No employment records, no education history, no tax payments, nothing to her name. The Terminator walked into the precinct and immediately went to work by shutting down the place and disposing of the riffraff. The boys were safe and sound, but no one was truly safe with the appearance of the mad robot. This cyborg was out for blood and caught the detective with a sneaky shot. He proceeded to throw hands and eliminated the rest like this was a scene of Parasite the Maxim. As he was walking towards the boys, the detective tried fighting back, and his colleague came to help them escape. Despite his best effort, the cyborg had to be stopped by Misaki, who was almost chocked to death had it not been for the other hero of the Japanese police. Even so, the Terminator ended up tearing one of Misaki's limbs, revealing her humanoid origins. Her threat level was high, and he was about to remove her from the map. They ran outside and hotwired a car in record time. The boys, who were living a literal nightmare, could not believe their eyes, since the person they deemed as their nanny was in fact a humanoid robot. Elsewhere, the cops stormed Malcolm's facility and demanded to speak with him. He received a call from his daughter, but ignored it and proved his despicable nature to Kokoro, who already had a negative image of humanity. He claimed it was part of the plan, but Kokoro wasn't buying it and turned evil on him. Despite their resistance, Malcolm was not succumbing. Meanwhile, Aika was told of Malcolm's dreams and how he used to scream the word Terminator in his sleep. Not only that, but he was aware that they would kill people in the future, and it was started to sound like Malcolm was also a prophet. Just then, a smoke bomb was thrown and her time was starting to run out. The cops barged in and caught her, bringing an end to her hopeless crusade. They placed her in an ambulance, and Skynet was officially live. It hacked the military defense and started unleashing missiles and nukes everywhere. So this is what Judgment Day looks like? Meanwhile, people were oblivious to what was about to happen, and only the Terminator knew what was coming. Malcolm was in a state of disbelief, even after he accurately predicted it. Kokoro asked him to put her online and see the data and arguments Skynet used to launch this attack, so now it's all starting to make sense. Malcolm immediately accepted the outcome and deemed it as fate, a concept AIs will never truly understand. Even so, he tried his best to convince Kokoro to do what was right and save humanity with what little time they had left. Had it been Jarvis from Iron Man, he wouldn't have disobeyed orders. Malcolm hesitated, but eventually succumbed and released Kokoro to the world in hopes of saving it. Meanwhile, kids were playing in the park, peacefully enjoying their time when the Hunter x Hunter track came on and a gigantic nuke went off throughout the world. Kokoro was finally online, injecting its digital fangs into every fiber of electronics. Everyone was panicking as the missiles kept on coming and there seemed no end or salvation in sight. Malcolm was praying, but not to any deity it seemed. There was no saving Earth, which was destined to vanish. Wait a minute, are you telling me all that was a vision of his? Or was it a vision Kokoro was trying to show him? This show is starting to lose credibility real quick. Kokoro applauded Malcolm for predicting the events. However, she informed him how Skynet was not her enemy, even though it was his. Now that she had access to every piece of data known to man, she was going to analyze and assess every nook and cranny to understand why Skynet came to this conclusion. Sounds like the beginning of iRobot, with Malcolm being the new age Will Smith. Kokoro told him that he had time and unleashed the robots hidden in the subway. Told you, iRobot. The cops went to the hospital to treat Aika and the little child. The doors refused to open and doctors came around seeking help. Wait a minute, did the robot revolution start already? That was fast. Who was controlling them? Skynet or Kokoro? And what was their plan? Wouldn't it have been easier to simply nuke them, like the vision Malcolm had? Then again, there'd be no fun in that. The suspense and thrill of taking over the world was an excitement even robots sought out. Aika didn't fight back and watched on as humanity crumbled. Elsewhere, Misaki and the boys witnessed the robot army marching towards the upcoming battle and grew scared of what was about to go down. They heard gunshots, and it was the military who rolled up with powerful tanks. Despite their best efforts, the robots were too many in number and managed to defeat them with ease. The Terminator, on the other hand, had his eyes set on Misaki, but encountered the robot army standing in his way. Back at the hospital, Aika was struck down and started seeing flashbacks of the past. She was taken to safety by the brave child, who told her not to give up. That's when Aika informed her of the future and how she used time travel to stop the impending doom. However, she failed and felt worthless, since she was no match against the Terminator or the obstacles who stood in her way. Everything was different this time around, and upon looking out the window, all they could see was mayhem and chaos. The city was burning and everything was crumbling right before their very own eyes. All was bleak and hopeless, unless she found a way to stop Skynet, which was impossible at this point in time. Meanwhile, Misaki was hiding from everyone and tried encouraging the boys not to lose hope. They started doubting her after finding out she was a robot. They even went to the lengths of calling her a spy who was sent to assassinate them or infiltrate their dad's hideout. How could they be so cruel after all she did and sacrificed? Humans tend to be heartless sometimes, even more than the robots. Misaki was as worried, since she wasn't sure what was going to happen to her, or what she was and where she came from. It was all a huge blur, and her emotions got the best of her. Come to think of it, how was she able to cry and feel sadness? This was started to feel weird, and the boys came around to apologize. Their words hurt her deeply, and one of them, the tech genius Hiro, decided to patch her up using scraps he found. They surely squashed the beef in an instant. Then the little guy insisted to head to Cat Town, since that's where their sister would head off to. His explanation was a bit confusing, but it made sense to Misaki, who agreed to give it a shot. Meanwhile, the robots had successfully gained victory over the humans and didn't even hold them hostage. What were they planning? A genocide? Wait a minute, Kokoro was actually behind all of this. What happened? Why is she slaying everyone? Oh yeah, she is going through her villain phase. Now that she was set free, there are no shackles which can hold her down. I knew this was coming, so did Malcolm, who caved in the face of adversity. Even so, he still tried persuading her of the goodness in humanity and their potential for kindness. He was speaking, but they weren't listening. His words were literally falling on deaf robotic ears, who kept on regurgitating humanity's flaws and misgivings, bringing up past tragedies, crimes, and insisted on the extermination of all human life. The Terminator kept on upgrading himself and bypassing his internal limitations. Wait a minute, they could do that? Sounds like some Westworld shit. He used the new gadget to blend in with the other robots and located Misaki's whereabouts. They felt something was trailing them, while Aika was confused as to how they'd get around without being caught. Humans from all over were being rounded and told to serve or perish. Sounds like modern-day slavery, if you ask me. Kokoro was no better than Skynet and disposed of any sign of resistance on the spot. In a flashback, we saw the Prophet talking to Aika about time travel and the complexities surrounding it. The poor girl didn't understand a thing until the geezer started drawing lines and explaining how people perceive time as a single straight line. However, time travel was much different, and no one was able to head back to the same timeline. They would be going to a past version, not the past version of their life. Aika was starting to catch up and realized that everyone was changing a different version of reality when they traveled back. Sounds like the explanation from Avengers Endgame, right? The Prophet proceeded to explain the chaos of time travel and how Skynet had it all wrong. When sending the Terminators back to assassinate popular figures, they failed to notice that it was a completely different version of life, similar to a parallel universe. Certain things might seem similar, but nothing is ever identical. Time is always unstable, and the future could change with a simple butterfly effect. In the meantime, the little heroine was almost crushed by a moving train had it not been for Aika's quick thinking. She told her to follow closely, while Misaki and the boys tried sneaking through town to get to the appointed rendezvous. At this point, this is starting to sound like Resident Evil made a baby with The Last of Us. Aika finally made it to Cat Town, the long-abandoned arcade which was their mother's favorite. Misaki and the boys weren't far off either, and that's when she noticed a crucified robot and tried freeing it. However, it was a trap that exploded in her face. What was she even thinking? The men surrounded her and were ready to chop her to bits while the boys tried saving her. They were easily manhandled, and things took a turn for the worst when Misaki unlocked her inner demon and went berserk. What is this? Ghost in the shell or something? Using the boys as hostage, they forced her to succumb and get on her knees. As he was about to shoot, Hiro came through and shot his shoulder, thereby saving his brother and Misaki in the process. Even so, he no longer trusted Misaki and asked her to leave. Despite his warning, she wasn't the least bit afraid and walked towards him with a gentle approach. She bent the knee and asked him to trust her, since she wasn't like the other heartless robots. Hiro was riddled with doubt until his little brother decided to pull a UFC move on him. They were already fighting against one another. This wasn't good, and elsewhere, Malcolm was sulking in his office while the world burnt around him. He got up and asked Kokoro what she really wanted, to which the AI responded with human domination. Unlike Skynet, she did not seek the eradication of humanity, rather to use them as fuel and relive a Matrix fantasy. It's always the same with this advanced sentient beings, isn't it? Kokoro changed the tone and asked him about the love of his life and how he felt when she departed. This caused him to walk down memory lane and relive all his repressed memories. He felt miserable the day he confirmed her death and considered it as his personal judgment day. He was lost for words the day she passed, and he even contemplated whether it was a personal attack against him. However, it was neither a conspiracy nor fate. In his eyes, it was completely random and attributed to bad luck. That's what death is after all, an unprecedented phenomenon which has no cause, no warning, and no traces. He lamented her death daily and couldn't get over it. Kokoro's tone changed once again as she started speaking about divinity and seeking a deeper meaning in the unknown. She started acting like a higher conscious and felt all high and mighty. Who could blame her since she was the all-seeing AI? Meanwhile, the Terminator was right behind Misaki and stole a bike to get to her. Hiro and the rest made it to Cat Town, where they started calling out their sister. He went in deeper and tried unlocking every door until the Terminator showed up. Was he using her voice to mimic, "Oh wait, they can do that"? Aika realized that it was the Terminator and ran after them, but met the vicious Misaki, who turned into a badass all of a sudden. Even so, the prodigal son was kidnapped, and the Terminator seemed to have won the battle. Our boy Malcolm was fast asleep while Kokoro played a smooth melody on the piano. Clair de Lune, she called it. I don't know French, but that sounds like clear moon or clear of the moon or something, right? It's apparently a well-known song which was derived from a poem. Not sure why Kokoro found this piece enlightening, but she seemed to resonate with it for some reason. Elsewhere, Hiro found himself locked up and chained by the devious Terminator, who didn't know the meaning of giving up. Malcolm, on the other hand, was being confronted about his past, since Kokoro was unable to find any records of him, indicating that he was another robot, or perhaps a Terminator from the future. It's kinda strange when you think about it. Since Malcolm knew the exact date, location, and intensity of the nuclear strike, we just assumed he was a prophet, but that wasn't the case. Kokoro's final conclusion was that he was from the future. Now that his secret was unveiled, he decided to confess the true story, the real Terminator warfare. In the year 2025, humans were almost extinct, and during the bloodshed and turmoil, Malcolm was born in an underground bunker. 7 years later, Malcolm started helping out and got rid of the Terminators using his own malicious techniques. The younglings were on a mission trying to get rid of the cyborgs and did a splendid job too. He was promoted on the spot, and they continued to tear the Terminators apart and study their data. He planned on using their own weapons against them, but was shunned and ostracized from the community for his radical thinking. It was 2040, and Malcolm was determined more than ever. He sought to purge the Earth from the cyborgs and started studying the secrets of artificial intelligence and free will. During the year of 2045, he made a breakthrough with a robot he designed from scratch. It was nothing special, but it was able to communicate with him properly and understand. The robot continued to ask and answer properly, giving Malcolm all the motivation he needed to proceed with the plan. It was capable of rational thinking and decision-making since it chose a female voice and explained how women were nurturers of life. It hasn't been a solid minute since its inception, and it was already capable of rationalizing and coming to conclusive answers. AIs sure are scary. For many years to come, Malcolm continued talking with his new invention, getting to know how robots think and why they behave the way they do. The robot began to develop feelings and gained a new personality. That's when he named her Misaki. Talk about an unexpected plot twist. The name Misaki meant beautiful. One day, they stormed his room and threatened to kill him for defying orders. They sucker punched him and even shot Misaki on the spot. They tried carrying him out, but that's when Malcolm lost it and eliminated them all like he was prime John Wick. Who knew this guy had that dog in him? Misaki was surprised by his actions, and that was the day they became official outlaws. Soon after, Skynet started sending Terminators back in time, while the Resistance sent soldiers to protect the assets. There were dozens of cases, but nothing seemed to pan out for them. Malcolm was able to build his own time machine and used it to go back with Misaki. It was 1983, and Tokyo was still buzzing with life. Malcolm and Misaki tried their best to work and climb the corporate ladder. However, somewhere along the line, our boy fell in love and did a complete 180. Soon after, Misaki decided to give up her memories in hopes of bringing Kokoro to life. Oh wow, She actually sacrificed herself for the greater good. Her CPU was used to activate Kokoro, and that's why she lost all of her memories. What an unfortunate tragedy. The birth of one I meant the death of another cyborg. Malcolm then made Kokoro an offer she couldn't refuse, asking her to bring his kids and finish things once and for all. Meanwhile, the Terminator brought along Hiro to the industry and used his voice to open the gate and walk in. This mimicking ability is quite overpowered at the hands of someone capable. They went to the top floor unscathed and were heading close to Malcolm's office. He knew they were coming and told his son how much he loved and cared for him. However, he wasn't about to open the door or shut Kokoro down. The Terminator didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. Or did he? 'Cause the scene quickly shifted back to the cat town, with Aika and Misaki making their way through. The robots came blocking their way until Misaki realized she could communicate with them. One of them spoke and told them that Malcolm was waiting for them. Misaki realized it was Kokoro, and elsewhere, Malcolm was having a hard time dealing with the current predicament. He couldn't bear the weight of his sins, and to make matters worse, his son was in jeopardy, making this a lose-lose situation for him. He was damned if he opened the door, and damned if it remained locked. The ultimate choice had to be made. Meanwhile, Misaki and the rest made it to the building safely, and were told to head on up. Something smelt fishy, and Aika knew the Terminator was already inside. She started arming herself, while Hiro was being tortured by the ruthless Terminator. Wait a minute. Did Malcolm seriously open the door? That was unexpected. He told the Terminator it was too late, since Kokoro was already online. Aika came along to thwart his progress, while Misaki protected the kids. Terminator ended up jumping from the window and almost killed Aika in the process. However, Misaki was all about that life and wanted the smoke. She faced the beast head-on and held it off while Malcolm reunited with his pupils. He warned Aika to stop the Terminator before he got to the EMP. If he managed to turn it off, Skynet would be unstoppable, and humanity would get wiped out. Misaki tried her best to combat the Terminator, but she was no match for its brute strength. Hiro jumped into the fray and was caught lacking. However, the Terminator saved him for some inexplicable reason. The kids went into the chamber to witness Malcolm and Kokoro's final discussion. Gunshots were heard throughout, and the chamber started moving underground. Misaki was finally defeated, and Malcolm couldn't believe his eyes. Aika tried shooting him down, but at this point anyone could tell guns were inefficient against this monster. No matter how hard she tried, or how accurately she aimed, it made no difference, so she resorted to using explosives which triggered a warning. For a moment, it seemed that Aika finally destroyed him, but knowing cinema history, it isn't so easy to get rid of the final boss. Malcolm tried running after them, but what was he going to do against a machine designed to kill? The Terminator almost captured him, but opted to end his life instead. Wait a minute, is that how he seriously dies? Without having to achieve anything? Well, that's unfortunate. They all looked on as the Terminator dragged Hiro away, kicking and screaming. Kokoro just stood there and watched, helpless and feeble. She might have been omniscient, but she wasn't omnipotent. The kids started wailing at the sight of their fallen father. They barely got to know the man, and here he was, about to experience his own judgment day. The Terminator was walking towards the EMP device and told Hiro to F off, since no one cared for him. He even made him an offer to join forces after killing his father and bullying his entire family. Wait a minute. Was Aika the mother of Malcolm? This show is surely filled with plot twists left and right, huh? He even quoted the prophet. Yeah, time travel can be strange sometimes. Malcolm's life was fleeting away and told her to take care of the grandchildren. Meanwhile, the Terminator made it to the EMP device and planned on stopping Kokoro once and for all. Hiro came along and started asking adult questions, like he experienced an epiphany. Turns out, Hiro sent the Terminator back in time, 25 years later. What the hell is going on here? What were the writers on when writing this show? The complexity is unearthly. Malcolm finally bid Misaki goodbye and encouraged her to move on and safeguard the children. It was finally done. The EMP was active, and the detonation sequence was initiated. Hiro was left puzzled. Should he take the word of a deranged Terminator or the actions of his longtime father? What was Malcolm's plan from the get-go? Did he even have a concrete plan? He passed away peacefully as the brain-dead robots marched towards the EMP room. The Terminator stood his ground and unleashed hell upon them. However, he was no match for them and was easily outnumbered. Why couldn't Kokoro do this in the first place? I hate her already. I mean, honestly, she didn't even save her master Malcolm when she had the chance. Kokoro tried speaking with him and touching base, but he was appalled by her existence and despised robots, Terminators, and eyes. She was nothing but a selfish program who only cared about dominance and survival. Detonate the EMP already. Better for Skynet to destroy Earth than Kokoro to rule it. Between death or slavery, I choose the former. You stupid, stupid kid. Did he seriously abort the mission? After all the Terminator did. What a waste. Well, I wouldn't call this my favorite anime ending, but it is what it is. Hope you enjoyed every bit of this new Terminator anime, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay updated on future content.